recording, I should do that. Okay, I think we're up and running. So greetings and congratulations to getting to this point in your collegiate career that you are thinking about the culminating experience of your career, doing a senior thesis of your interest, your design, and working independently with one mentor, and then together with all of us here in a seminar in the first quarter before you complete the thesis in a second quarter, working solely with your mentor professor. Now, I will talk to you today about what the steps are you ought to be taking between now and December so that you're ready to jump in the first week of January. But I want also to mention a preliminary thing, that with the new history of public policy and law major, you, even if you're in the history of public policy major and willing to switch to that new major, can avoid the honor of doing a two-quarter senior thesis. You can fulfill the research requirement by doing an R course, and in that R course, taking on a topic of an approved topic of policy focus. So if you're doing antiquity, you look at a particular military policy or religious policy or expansion policy, something like that. If you're doing early modern, maybe you're looking at monarchical acts or popular uprisings or something. And just about any course, any R course in the department in a period or place around the globe, you can imagine a topic that has a sufficient policy focus that it will fulfill the R requirement for the history of public policy and law major. All right, so that gives you an out. As soon as I say something that's really objectionable, you go, that does it. I'm going to switch and I'm going to do an R course. But let me entice you into thinking about the senior thesis in this way. Very few people at a Research One university have the opportunity to work with leading researchers in their field one-on-one on a topic of your choice to complete a two-quarter senior thesis that is the equivalent of sort of a beginning graduate experience research project. It's something that will demonstrate to yourself your own capacity to, first of all, envision and then fine-tune down a research question. From that, to be able to envision and seek out and gather evidence, so to do research. Third, from that research, to be able to interpret and then analyze that research to answer your question, and then to write it all up in a, I guess, an attention commanding and persuasive and logical and literary way. It has all of those who've come before you in this process have both wrestled with it and I think done very well for themselves, having put themselves into this process as they go on to grad school or work. And maybe Corey can think of other people who for whom they go, no, that it wasn't good at all. It's the very worst thing about the university. But if so, don't tell anybody, okay? So it is, I think, one of the coolest things you can do at a university of this stature. Typically, people have to go to $100,000 a year tiny liberal arts college to be able to do a senior thesis of interest to you with individual mentorship. And it's something that's a pretty distinctive aspect of our program, I think. So that's my pitch for it. Now, I said I would tell you what you need to do now if, in fact, you are ready to go forward with this. And I will stand ready to help you think about with whom you might conduct such a project that you have in mind, and how you might take a general interest and pull a researchable senior thesis topic out of it, But let me tell you 3 tasks first off. Imagine an area, and imagine seems too vague, but I use this in its creative sense. What is it that you're most interested in, generally, in the history that you've been studying, so that you've got a decent base of knowledge about it, and from that can devise a question you will be interested in researching. That is a first task you have. Secondly, you have to think of professors perhaps you've worked with or others in the department who would have expertise and would be willing to advise you on that topic, and contact them this quarter to make sure they would be available next quarter and willing to research with you, to be your advisor for next quarter and spring quarter to complete the thesis. That's task number 2. Then the third task is, once you've talked with that professor, you've laid out the rough idea you've got for a topic, is make sure that sources are going to be available for you to pull off this research, especially crucial this year because of our remote circumstances. Though we're finding that you're going to be able to have interlibrary loan access to the library now. That's just beginning to open up. And we may be able to look forward by the end of winter quarter, if things continue to go well, to, if you are here, being able to use resources of the library in a limited way. But first and foremost, I think you want to think of a topic that may be addressable by digitized research sources. If you're interested in US kinds of policy, go to the library. Imagine a topic, go to the Library of Congress, look at what kinds of topics exist, go to government publications and documents at UCSB. Are there hearings on the environmental, the Clean Air Act renewal of 1992, so that you've got primary sources, for example, things like that. So topic, advisor, and begin thinking about the kinds of sources that you'll be using and making sure those are going to be available to you. I think those are your big 3 tasks this quarter. Once you've got those locked, depending on the number of people we have, I am going to ask you to submit to us just a brief I put out what this was going to be. A paragraph or less. This is my proposed research topic. I have the agreement of Professor X, and here is what qualifies me to do that. I've done undergrad research courses, my GPA, something like that. I think that's how we laid this out. Is that correct, Corey? Is that how we?
Yeah, I think it was, a brief paragraph, a professor who's willing to advise you, and then, these are the relevant courses and things I've done for this topic.
Great. And so that means that if there are 30 people who want to do this this next quarter, and we can only really have 18 in there, that you will be making a case for why your topic ought to be, and your record ought to be one that gains you entry to the seminar. I am not sure we need to worry about that this quarter coming. I think that those who want to do it will probably be able to do it, but I can't guarantee that, and that's why we're doing this. We're launching this process right now.
And I will say that for people, I think some other people were looking into the history thesis. That program is open to all majors in the history department, so a lot more people will apply. Whereas this program is open only to people in history of public policy or history of public policy and law. So just want to throw that out there, because the history major itself is like huge, but none of those people will be applying to this program.
No, you are already a select group that has extra access to doing the thesis. Mm-hmm. So what I would like to do is, I know some of you from class having crossed paths with you, but I don't know everyone. And I would be interested just in hearing, first of all, are you history of public policy or history of public policy and law right now? And what kinds of things might you think of doing? You're also introducing yourselves to one another because you may be seminar mates next quarter. What kinds of things are you interested in doing for a senior thesis? And I think I will invite you to just pitch in. Is anybody willing to launch in first? Yeah, Astrid.
Hi, I'm Astrid. Fourth year. I am History of Public Policy and Law, and I'm also in Labor Studies, the minor. And I'm wanting to do a lot of like American healthcare policy.
Oh, excellent.
Around like Clinton administration is I think like narrowed down, and like what changed then and why.
Great, great. Now, have you worked with professors on, like, have you read that sort of stuff in any courses?
A little bit here and there, yeah, like a lot of different random pieces from a lot of different classes, and then like that's what I found is like the common thread of interest. So I've never like delved in like really deep on the specifics of it, but I've done a lot of classes within the history department, obviously like within a lot of policy and everything, and that's what I always found the most interesting.
Good, good, because certainly Prof. O'Connor will be interested in that. And the topic you suggest in the Clinton administration is one that in History 172B, I think I assigned to everybody in the course last year using the actual report that came out, a number of the different documents of the advocates of different positions of that, as well as a couple of the key books on that. So I'll be glad to filter you that information. But great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Who else is next?
Hi, I'm Quinn. I'm a history of public policy and law major. I'm also a fourth year. And I was specifically thinking about looking how like AI and algorithm has affected polarization. So like more specifically comparing it to like past technologies and seeing whether it's more like iterative or like disruptive. So whether it's like more a continuation of like data focused content being directed towards you, or whether it's something that's like new and actually different.
So that sounds really intriguing, and I look forward when you're a millionaire that you will be making a fine contribution back to the History of Public Policy program for this. You're going to get my first cautionary note, and do not let it discourage you from this topic. My advice over the years has been to take a topic that is at least 10 years in the past, so that sources are readily have already begun to sort of firm up, show up in the library, digitally are available. I imagine you could think of ways to approach what you're interested in now with sort of early email campaigns and things like that, and then use your absolute contemporary sort of AI takes on this as an epilogue. But maybe there are early, like even robocalling or something like that as an early iteration of this. I don't know. Do you have anything particular in mind, a particular time period or?
Well, I was more thinking about this when I traveled abroad in the Netherlands, and we took a history of media class, and sort of looked how each one, there's always like these fears of like each new iteration of a medium, there are always fears that it's like going to directly affect people's opinion. Like with movies, they thought that it was like essentially going to completely influence how people thought or make people more violent, which didn't necessarily end up being true. So I was going to sort of compare it to different emerging technologies.
Very cool.
But
and as we well know, the Dutch have always been so violent that there's no possible technology to subdue that. Exactly. But yeah, the movies as a medium, television as a medium, that drew all kinds of warnings that way too. That's very cool. Excellent. Now, are there folks you've worked with in the history department? I would say any 20th century person.
There have been a few people, but nothing like specifically around like the technology of it. Not here, at least. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly where I'd go, but I have some ideas.
Well, a couple of the folks that come to mind are in the history of science.
Patrick McCrae. Maybe.
Yeah. That's. I think he would be a logical choice, and I'm thinking he's around in winter and spring quarter.
Yeah, he's teaching next
Good.
quarter at least, so
Yeah.
he'll be
So,
How do you spell his last name?
McCrae. So it's
Mhm.
McCray.
Cool. Thank you very much.
perfect. Perfect. All right. Next self-nominating person. Very cool. Thanks, Quinn.
I can go next.
All right,
Hi,
Alexandra.
everyone. I'm Alexandra Perez. I'm a third-year senior political science and history, public policy, and law double major. Something I'm really interested is immigration policy, specifically immigration policy in the late 20th century, early 21st century, and how that has contributed to like anti-immigrant sentiment in the United States. I want to focus primarily on minority immigrants, so immigrants of color specifically, largely coming through the Mexico border, so from like Latin America, Central America, and Mexico. But yeah, that's something that's super interesting to me and would like to focus on.
Great. That's certainly a super interesting policy. I would agree. Third year, is this the year you're going to do your senior thesis? Are you racing toward early graduation?
Yes, I am graduating
Okay.
early.
Okay. More power to you on that. Have you had courses with Professor Castillo Munoz?
I have not.
She is very interested in that on the borderland. And Prof. Spickard has been taught over the years courses on migration and immigration as well. Two good prospects. Have you worked on that issue with professors? Even typically, I think it's to your best interest to seek out a faculty member in the history department. We have had folks who have been able to call upon professors from other departments as well if they've done multiple courses with them. So that is a prospect as well.
Yeah, I've definitely taken so I took the history 9 course we're required to take. I took it with Professor Carrillo and we focused on US Mexico border relations. And I've also taken an immigration policy class through the political science department. So I have a lot of strong background, I feel like, on immigration policy. So it's something that is really interesting to me. So yeah.
Great. Well, those two names I suggested are great places to go knocking on doors as well. But that's very exciting, and I'm going to write that down. Turn of the 20th century. Great. All right. Thank you, Alexandra. A next volunteer. You know what's going to happen is I'm just going to read the next name on my screen so that. Caitlin, how about you?
I think Stella was ready also.
Oh, Stella, I didn't see. Please.
Oh yeah, no worries. So I'm Stella. I'm a fourth year history of public policy and law. Recently added the and law bit. Thank you again, Corey. Right now, I think some of my biggest interests are related also to immigration and then also US policy regarding race. Right now, particularly focused on voter suppression efforts. And something I've also been mulling over is looking into how colonial powers interact with colonies that have broken away, and maybe looking at an example of like France and Haiti or Spain and all of Latin America. So that kind of thing. But I haven't narrowed it down yet because I'm really eyeing the public history research seminar next quarter. So
let us talk about that. That I will invite you to do either public policy or a public history with policy enough in it to fulfill your major. That course may not fly. We are currently in negotiation with the chair around things having to do with the Journal of the Public Historian being able to staff that. If 192 does not fly, but it is a public history topic you'd like to do, I will guarantee that you can do that. And what we'll do is have you do your 1 quarter along with your classmates in 195, but do it as a 192R. So that will be feasible. I would say all of these interests are great. We were just talking about in 170 course earlier this week about the reparations movement in the US and in the Caribbean, the nations with all of these sort of colonial threads back to the Netherlands, France, Britain, the CARICOM nations have for the last 10 years been working with the European Union for some sort of reparation program for the presence of slavery in their past. That could be a cool topic. And you would only need to know 4 to 8 languages to master it. So that would be great. You could pick any aspect of it. But so let's us talk, Stella, because yeah, it would be very cool to think about the public history kind of interest you would have.
Yeah, well. I'll be joining you in office hours next week then.
All right, we'll plan on that. That's great. Eric, how about you?
Hello, everyone. My name's Eric. I'm a 4th-year history of public policy major. To be honest, I'm still in deep thought about what exactly I wish to focus on in regards to senior thesis. I believe I previously already discussed with you, Professor Bergstrom.
Yeah.
I'm still generally interested in the areas of like healthcare, and I think also maybe perhaps a little bit into like campaign finance reform as well. That's kind of a
wow.
strand of thought that I've kind of been mulling over as of late. But again, it like my thought processes are still very much open, so to speak. So
sure. Well, as when you and I talked, I will share with everyone, I regard this as kind of a candy store moment in your careers. There are so many cool possibilities. That's one of the biggest difficulties, is saying, what's one thing that I can do that fulfills my something I've always wanted to know about, but also allows me to research and really show off my my best skills, as well as polish, develop my research skills. So I think all of those are cool. You know, one thing I'll say to everybody is, as you are thinking of sort of a general field like healthcare policy, AI, the migration policy, if you can think of a particular moment and build out from there, like the advocacy of a particular act, one group's proposal or something like that, you start with a very manageable moment. You build in the context. You can always expand through time, rather than thinking of, I'm going to do 50 years of immigration policy and then being overwhelmed when you have to kind of narrow that down to be able to complete the research on it. So that's just a piece of advice that predecessors, I was going to say in your chairs, but they weren't in your chairs because they were all sitting on campus at HSSP. But predecessors in your position would advise you, I think, based on their experience. Think of one person, one particular act, one particular moment. But yeah, that's an exciting batch of interests, Eric. So, Christina or Caitlin?
I could go, but I don't know really what I want to do either. So I'm Christina. I'm a double major of political science and history, public policy, and law. My emphasis for political science is international relations, and for history, public policy of law, it's Middle Eastern. So following on that, I'm interested in a kind of variety of topics that are kind of related. I just have to figure out which one I kind of want to do more. So I was like interested in Ottoman policies. Around like from the end of the 18th century to the 1900s, towards regarding minorities, I would say, living in the Ottoman Empire. That's one. Or oh no, I forgot the second one. There was another one, but I can't.
Just of itself.
Thank you. Oh, the other one was Orientalism and how it affects Swana community, so Southwest Asian and North African. Especially, I want to focus on the perception of race and ethnicity, since as Americans, there's such heavy like emphasis on that. And, you know, there's white passing SWANAs, and they're getting affected by, Orientalism, this concept that has carried through of your white passing, so you don't get as much privileges and rights as white Europeaners per se. So how does Orientalism affect those type of communities?
You are already beyond my knowledge on that, but that's pretty intriguing. Would you think about sort of expatriate communities like in the European Union, in the US, or elsewhere in the globe, or in their own communities using that white passing and then treated by colonizers external?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a huge topic where it's like, well, really, where do I begin? What angle do I want to tackle this from, you know? So I haven't really done any like investigation or work into it. I'm just throwing around some ideas on what I would be interested in doing. Those
certainly qualify as interesting. One way to begin to narrow it is, are there particular profs you've had in the department who would be willing to tackle either of those topics with you?
So right now I'm in History 46B, which is Middle Eastern history from 19th century to present. I cannot pronounce the professor's name correctly. It's forgiven, but it's Professor Shikli, I believe.
Is it
I forgot her first name, but she.
Yeah. Shireen Saikali?
Yes,
Good.
That is the one. She's very knowledgeable on Orientalism. I know her emphasis is Palestine, the conflict with Palestine. So it's very similar to what I'm also interested in. There's another topic that I was also interested in, which is the right to self-determination, specifically for Artsakh, which is the autonomous region in the Caucasus right now, and there's a war going on over there. So that's very relevant to modern policies and politics and the right to self-determination of countries and states.
Well, when you get those first two senior theses done and come back to write that third one, that sounds exciting. Well, that's great.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I think you've identified a good first person to talk with in Prof. Cycli right away. That sounds exciting. Great. So, Caitlin, how about you? And you may be permanently muted. I'll check in with you later on then. I don't know if any other questions come up for any of you. You have our first round of suggest your to-do list for looking into senior thesis. If this plus a half dozen people are our numbers, I think we will have a good seminar and we'll be in good shape. If it is only this many, we'll have an even better seminar because you'll have that much more time to read one another's work. Any questions about the process going forward? Okay, good. Once you're applied, this is the kind of course that we can register you for even at the beginning of next quarter, right, Corey? Is that, yeah.
Yeah, so that's one thing I wanted to address. I know pastimes are starting next week for winter. So yeah, this isn't a class that's gonna like fill up or anything like that. Just be aware of like the day and time of the class on Gold. It should be listed already. And maybe don't register for things at the same time. And then, yeah, we can send you an ad code for this kind of later on, and you can add it to your schedule.
Great. And I think that time is Thursday in the afternoon, so later afternoon, but it'll be on Gold. Great. Well, if there are no further questions, know that you now, those of you I've not met before, pleasure to meet you and hear your interests. And I will look forward to helping as you're thinking about refining general interest onto a particular topic. Astrid, if I remember, I will send the list of stuff that I've had folks read for the kind of 1990s round of healthcare things. And it's a pleasure to talk with you all. Anytime, office hours, mine are Wednesday afternoons, right now, actually, 3 to 5. And if you dash me an email, I'd be glad to set up an appointment to talk further with you. All right. Anything else we need to raise, Corey, that you can think of?
Not right now. If any
All
of you
right.
have any questions about, like, you know, winter classes or anything and how this might fit in, feel free to email me. We can talk about that.
Great. All right. I think we are good. Recruit your HPPL friends who you want to make read your draft papers to come join the course as well. Otherwise, we are in good shape. Pleasure to talk with you all, and we'll see you again soon.